Captain Underpants and the Paris plot of Professor Poopypants. In our last 3 adventures, we tried to save our crazy principal from disaster. He thought he was a real superhero, but he wasn't. We didn't think it could get any worse, but he did. The all-new top-secret truth about Captain Underpants. Once upon a time, there were 2 go-kids named George and Harold. They were awesome, me too. They had a mean old principal named Mr. Crop, blah blah blah. Mr. Crop was very mean to George and Harold, blah blah blah. So they bought the sweet tea hypno ring. They used it to hypnotize Mr. Crop. You'll be a sulky donkey. But they made a terrible mistake. You are now Captain Underpants. Okay. Hey, come back, Mr. Crop. Tra-la-la. Mr. Crop thought he really was Captain Underpants, but he didn't have any superpowers. Stop, you big dummy. They had a lot of adventures. One time, they even got attacked by a UFO. They all got talking to the spaceship, and George stole some alien superpower juice. There, Mr. Crop got eaten by a big evil dandelion. He had to be there. So George gave him some superpower juice. Then he got superpowers. Now Captain Underpants has amazing strength. He can even fly too. Holy cow. The only way George and Harold can stop Captain Underpants from causing trouble is by pouring water on his head. This makes him turn back into Mr. Crop. Hey, Bob. But beware, because whenever Mr. Crop hears somebody snap their fingers, snap, snap, he turns back into you know who. Oh no, here we go again. Tra-la-la. Chapter 1. George and Harold. This is George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Harold is the one on the right with the shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. Experts at Jewel Lawrence Elementary School had their opinions about George and Harold. The guidance counselor, Mr. Acton, thought the boy suffered from ADD. The school psychologist, Miss Labor, diagnosed them with ADHD, and the main adult principal, Mr. Crop, thought they were just plain old BAD. If you ask me, George and Harold simply suffered from IBSS, incredibly boring school syndrome. You see, George and Harold weren't really bad kids. They were actually very bright, good-natured boys. The only problem was that they were bored in school, so they took it upon themselves to liven things up for everybody. Wasn't that the father with them? Unfortunately, George and Harold's thoughtfulness got them into trouble every now and then. Sometimes it got them into a lot of trouble, and one time it got them into so much trouble it almost caused the entire planet to be taken over by a ruthless, maniacal mad scientist guy in a giant robot suit. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 2. All hail New Switzerland. Yes, everybody knows New Switzerland is a small country just southeast of Finland. You probably know all about New Switzerland's natural resources and systems of government. But here's something about New Switzerland that I'll bet you didn't know. Everybody in New Switzerland has a silly name, just as the president, the Honorable Chuckles Jinkerberry McMonkeyberg Jr., or his lovely wife Stinky. They'll tell you all about New Switzerland's proud silly name heritage. They'll tell you about the cultural significance of silly names, and then they'll probably tell you a really long, boring story of how this stupid tradition got started. We'll skip that part, okay? Just remember that everybody in New Switzerland has a silly name, from the richest to the poorest, from the dumbest to the smartest. And speaking of the smartest, let me introduce you to Professor Poopypants. There's a statue of him down there at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. Not Poopypants, who was probably the smartest person in all New Switzerland. He graduated at the head of his class at Perilous University, and afterwards spent all of his time creating wild and fantastic inventions. Let's look at him, shall we? Back in his private laboratory, Professor Poopypants was just putting the finishing touches on two wonderful new inventions, the Shrinking Pig 2000 and the Goosey Grow 4000. Professor Poopypants called for his assistant, Buckybelly Funky Skunk. Mr. Funky Skunk, baby out, I am now ready to test my new inventions. Buckybelly took notes while the professor aimed his Shrinking Pig 2000 at the earliest pile of trash. A powerful beam of energy blasted the garbage heap. Suddenly, the large pile of trash shrank to the size of a dumbbell. Hooray, it works, cried Professor Poopypants. Now I must try the Goosey Grow 4000. Baby and Pork barely aimed the Goosey Grow 4000 at the ordinary hot dog with mustard. Went another bright beam of energy. Suddenly, the hot dog grew and grew until it crashed through the walls of the laboratory. We did it, exclaimed Buckybelly. What do you mean, we? Yelled Professor Poopypants. I did it. I'm the genius. You're just a lonely assistant, and don't you forget it. Sorry, boss, said Buckybelly. With these two inventions, exclaimed Professor Poopypants, I was able to solve the world's garbage problem and create enough food for everyone on the entire planet. Finally, it looked as though the Earth's dilemmas would be fixed forever. But who would have believed that in just a few short weeks, Professor Poopypants would be trying to take over the planet in a fit of frenzied rage? Well, there readers, the tragic tale is about to unfold. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 3, The Field Trip. Gerald Moore's elementary school was having its big annual field trip to Perilous. Half the kids had brought their permission slips and were lined up to get on the bus. George and Gerald could hardly wait to eat pizza and play video games all afternoon. This is gonna roll, said George. Yeah, if we get there, said Harold. Hey, said George, let's change the letters around the score sign while we're waiting. Good idea, said Harold. So George and Harold went over to the sign and began the hunt for this. Unfortunately, the boys didn't notice a dog football named Presence like nearby in the bushes. cried Mr. Grub. I got you boys red-handed. Oh, said George, and laughed out. This is just a little joke. A joke, you Mr. Grub. Do you boys think that's funny? George and Harold thought for a moment. Oh, yes, said George. Don't you? Asked Harold. No, I don't think it's funny, Mr. Grub. I think it's rude and offensive. That's why it's funny, said George. Oh, said Mr. Grub, you boys like to laugh, huh? Well, here's a good one. You two are officially banned from the school field trip. Instead of eating pizza, you'll spend the afternoon cleaning up the teacher's lounge. Isn't that funny? No way, said Harold. That's not funny at all, said George. That's cruel and unusual punishment. That's why it's funny, Mr. Grub snarled. Chapter 4, Left Behind. Mr. Grub marched George and Harold over to the janitor's closet. You can use the sea supplies to collect the teacher's lounge, said Mr. Grub. I want it spotless by the time we get back. Mr. Grub ran back outside, climbed onto the school bus, and laughed loudly as the buses pulled away. The teachers all pointed at George and Harold and laughed too. Rats, said Harold. I thought we were going to have fun today. We can still have fun, said George. All we need is this ladder, that bag of powder paste, and those big boxes of styrofoam when we dinghies. So George and Harold carried their supplies to the teacher's lounge and got down to business. At the sink, George poured the spray nozzle while Harold carefully taped the sprayer handle in an arm position. Then the two boys put the nozzle back, making sure the sprayer head was pointed into the right direction. Next, George held the ladder steady while Harold climbed up to the ceiling fan. There he began scooping generous amounts of powder paste onto the tops of the fan blades. This is right, asked Harold. Yes, said George, trying to get the most of it on the ends of the blades. Got it, said Harold. George closed all the blinds while Harold adjusted the ceiling fan so they would turn on while the lights came on. Finally, the boys filled the refrigerator up with warm shaped styrofoam packaging pellets. This is going to be fun, said Harold. Not for the teachers, laughed George. Chapter 5, the fun begins. An hour or so later, the buses returned to school. All of the children got off, packed up their stuff, and got ready to go home. Mystified, the science teacher was on school bus duty. The rest of the teachers gathered around George and Harold and began teasing them. Kids sure did miss a fun-filled trip, said Miss Rubble. The pizza was so delicious. Too bad you didn't get any. I wanted to bring you back the pizza, said Mr. Meter, but I ate it on the bus. He threw an empty pizza box at George and Harold's feet, and the teachers howled with laughter. Maybe you can lick the cheese off the box, Mr. Crop roared. Teachers eventually got tired of taunting George and Harold, so they retreated to the teacher's lounge to relax. Hey, how come it's so dark in here? Asked Mr. Meter as he flicked on the lights. The ceiling fan began rotating very slowly. Miss Ripple went to the sink and turned on the faucet. Suddenly, the spray nozzle sprayed cold water all over her. Ah! She screamed. Somebody turn the water off. The other teachers sprang up and tried to help. They all got sprayed too. The ceiling fan was roasting faster now, and some of the powder-based bed began flying off of the flame blades. The teachers struggled over the faucets, pushing and shoving each other. Finally, somebody turned the water off, but not before everyone was thoroughly soaked. The ceiling fan was now spinning at full speed. All of the powder on the fan blades had been falling off, and it was now floating down under the red teachers. Hey, what the? Cried Miss Demeanor. What's all of this sticky stuff? Yelled Miss Anthrop. By now, all the teachers were covered in gooey, sticky paste. It didn't take a genius to know that George and Harold were behind all this. Those breads better have not touched my diet soda, Miss Ripple shouted. She dashed to the refrigerator and swung the door open. Suddenly, thousands of tiny storefront buds threw on into the room. The wind from the ceiling fan blew the pallets around that around. Naturally, they landed under the stickiest things in the room, the teachers. Screamed the teachers. They ran out of the teachers' arms, screaming and yelling. George and Harold saw them all locked up like a group of giant evil snowmen heading straight toward them. I got a good idea, said George. What? Asked Harold. Run, said George. Chapter 6, Bye-Bye Mystified. The next day, George and Harold's science teacher, Mystified, knocked on Mr. Grubb's door. What do you want? Barked Mr. Grubb. I've come to resign, said Mystified. I just can't take it anymore. Now hold on, Bob, said Mr. Grubb. Being a teacher is hard work. You can't just quit your job when things aren't. You don't understand, said Mystified. I think I'm cracking up. What do you mean? Asked Mr. Grubb. Well, said Mystified, it all started a few months ago when I had this dream that I got eaten up by a talking toilet. Then I started hearing cats and dogs meowing and growling in the classroom. Then I imagined that the school got flooded with skinky green goop. And just yesterday, I thought I saw a group of abominable snowmen and chasing two boys down a hallway. Now wait just a minute, Buddy, said Mr. Grubb. All of that can be explained. And a few days ago, said Mystified, I thought I saw a big fat fog guy and his underwear fly out the window. Holy cow, said Mr. Grubb. You are crazy. So Mystified ended his resignation and left Drumheart Elementary School for the greener pastures of Bigger Valley Foam for the really challenged. Now where am I going to find a new science teacher on such short notice, said Mr. Grubb. Where? Chapter 7, here. Remember that Poopypants guy I was talking about back in Chapter 2? Well, things hadn't gone too well for him in the past several weeks. Professor Poopypants came to the America this year. The shrinky pig 2000 and the Goosey Girl 4000 went the world, but nobody seemed to want to hear his inventions. They were all too busy. Laughing at his silly name. Ha 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 ha. Poor baby Poopypants laughed out at every major scientific institution in the U.S. He giggled out of Georgetown, howled out of Harvard, yucked out of Yale, sniggered out of Stanford, and chuckled out of Chattanooga State Technical Community College. Professor Poopypants was running out of money, and there was no place left for him to turn. Then one day the professor walked into the New York coffee shop and picked up the newspaper, and like the message teacher from heaven, Poopypants frowned his answer. That's any good. I'll become an elementary school science teacher. I work really hard, and soon people will come to respect me and see what a genius I am. Then I can introduce my great inventions to the world. Poopypants was certain that the one place people wouldn't laugh at his name was at elementary school. Kids are so accepting and loving, he said. You can always count on the sweetness and innocence of children. Chapter 8, The Sweetness and Innocence of Children. Hello, boys and girls, said the professor a week later. I'm going to be your new science teacher. My name is Professor Poopypants. Alright, settle down, boys and girls. Yes, it's a funny name, I know. But let me explain how I got this name, please. Children, settle down. It's not that funny. Let me show you, boys and girls. Boys and girls, please stop laughing. Alright, I'm going to count to 10. And when I'm done, I want all of you to quiet down so we can learn about the wonderful world of science. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 and a half. Children, please stop laughing. I know you are very far behind your lessons, and we got a lot of catching up to do. Boys and girls, stop it. I'm not going to tell you again. It's not funny. There's no reason at all for you to be laughing at my name. I'm sure we all have funny names if you think about it. Stop it right now. Okay, boys and girls, I'll just wait until you all settle down. I can't wait. A week later, things hadn't gotten any better. Professor Poopypants was really beginning to get angry. How am I going to get through to these children? He asked himself. Hey, I got it. I'll create a wonderful new invention. Chapter 9, The Jumbo Jogger 2000. The next morning, Professor Poopypants came to school with an odd-looking miniature robot. Look, children, he said, I created a new invention using the principles of science. I call it the Jumbo Jogger 2000. The children stopped laughing for a moment and looked with interest at Professor Poopypants' new invention. You see, children, said the professor, some people like to jog and their pets like to jog along beside them. That's fine if you have a dog or a cat, but what if you have a pet gerbil? I used to be a big problem, but not anymore. Professor Poopypants opened the glass dome on the Jumbo Jogger 2000 and inserted a cute fuzzy gerbil. The gerbil pushed his tiny legs against the simple controls, and suddenly the machine came to life. And no time at all, the gerbil was jogging around the classroom in his robot suit. The children were delighted. Wow, said Count Massini. Science is cool. And other children agreed. This is wonderful. Professor Poopypants, I reached them. Now I can teach them. Excuse me, said George to the professor. What's your middle name? My middle name, said the professor proudly, is Pee-Pee. Why do you ask? At that point, the children picked up up where they left off laughing at Professor Poopypants' ridiculous name. The professor began to shake with anger. Tiny veins in his forehead started glowing, and his face turned bright red. I can take so much more of this, the first professor said through clenched teeth. I think I might blow a fuse if just one more thing happens. Chapter 10, just one more thing. Soon afterward, in reading class, the children all heard the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. You know, said George, that story gives me an idea. So George and I began working on the newest comic book, Captain Underpants and the Pied Piper. That afternoon, they snuck into the office and went off copies of the new adventure to sell on the playground. And everything would have been just fine if one of the third graders and then left his copy lying around in the hallway. Chapter 1, Captain Underpants and the Pied Piper by George Beard and Harold Hutchins. Captain Underpants and the Pied Piper story by George Beard, pictures by Harold Hutchins. Once upon a time, in the city of Piker, Ohio, there was a science teacher whose name was Poopypants. My middle name was Pee-Pee. Everybody laughed at his funny name. This made Pee-Pee mad. I'll show them. So he built an army of Jumbo Jugger 2000s. He put the Jimbos in each one, but he couldn't make them do any evil stuff. Rats, tap. Then he thought of an evil plan, but of course, he made a bunch of little headphones and put them on the Jumbos. Hey, soon the Professor Poopypants' army of Jumbo Jugger 2000s were off of an evil rampage. They all headed straight for the school. Help! The Jumbo Jugger 2000s broke in the cafeteria. They just knocked over some cupcakes and now they were attacking the gym teacher. Quick, somebody save the cupcakes. Professor Poopypants and his evil army rounded up on the children. Follow me. This looks like a job for Captain Underpants. What seems to be the problem? I'm taking these kids to be my slaves. And just what do you think you are, Professor Poopypants? Professor Poopypants was really mad. So he pressed a button on his bow tie, and his bow tie transformed him into a giant cyborg. They had a big fight, but Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding waistband. More powerful than boxer shorts, Howie, and able to leap tall buildings without getting ready. Tra-la-la. Professor Poopypants chased our hero to the auto junkyard. I got you now, waistband warrior clock. Now I'm gonna crush you. Captain Underpants pressed the button on his eternally waistband. Click. And now popped the tiny toy of truth. Captain Underpants aimed the tiny toy of truth at Robert Pippi. Flush! I'm arrested. Captain Underpants saved the day, but what about the evil jugglers? They're not evil. Look, Professor Poopypants was controlling them with this. Is that the music? No, listen. Babe, I got you, babe. Please, God, make it stop. This will make anybody turn you. So Captain Underpants destroyed the controller. Hallelujah, tra-la-la. Hooray for Captain Underpants. The end. Note, all animal cruelty was simulated. No actual jumpers were forced to listen to cheer. Chapter 12. Professor P goes crazy. In his entire life, Professor Poopypants had never been as angry as he was at that very moment. As he stood in the hallway, something inside his fragile brain snapped and began shaking and sweating uncontrollably. Suddenly, a wicked smile stretched across the professor's face. He staggered toward his empty classroom, mumbling to himself and giggling. He had hit rock bottom, and he decided to pull the rest of planet down with him. Poopypants was going to take over the world. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you, oh, never mind. I just have to tell you that story. Chapter 13, Honey, I Shrunk the School. Professor Poopypants opened the strange closet in his classroom and took out the Shrinky Pig 2000 and the Gussie Grow 4000. He also grabbed the empty Turbo Chocolate 2000 and stumbled outside with his inventions. The crazed professor giggled wildly to himself as he ate the Gussie Grow 4000 and the Turbo Chocolate 2000. Suddenly, the Jumper Chocolate 2000 grew 10 stories high. Professor Poopypants began his long climb up to the side of the giant Jumper Chocolate 2000. It took almost an hour, but eventually he reached the huge glass dome at the top and squeezed his way inside. Mommy, said the little boy who was walking by with his mother. A little old man just crawled into a giant robot suit and was about to take off to school. Oh, for heaven's sake, said his mother. Why'd you come up with this nonsense? Next, you'll be telling me that a giant man in his underwear is fighting the huge robot in the middle of the city. Professor Poopypants was now in control of the closet Jumper Chocolate 2000. He reached down with his mighty arm, picked up the Shrinky Pig 2000, and aimed it at the school. Just then, George Neal looked out the window. Hey, said George, isn't that the Jumper robot thingy? Yeah, said Harold. Why is it so big? I don't know, said George. But it's getting bigger by the second. Said Harold, I don't think it's getting bigger. I think we're getting smaller. Chapter 14, The Paris Plot. Professor Poopypants reached down and picked up the tiny school with his giant robotic hand. Everyone screamed in horror. In no time at all, eyewitness newswoman Ingrid Ashley was on the scene. What do you want from us? Shouted reporter Ashley. I want a pencil, screamed Professor Poopypants. A pencil, asked reporter Ashley. Here, take mine. She tossed a yellow number 2 pencil toward the giant robot. Professor Poopypants reached down with his giant robot arm, picked up the Gussie Grow 4000, and aimed it at the pencil. The pencil grew to the size of a tree trunk, and Professor Poopypants grabbed it. Follow me. said. The giant robot led the news crew to the center of downtown Bangkok. There he found 3 large white billboards. He put down the Shrinky Pig 2000 and the Gussie Grove 1000 and began writing on the billboards with his giant pencil. Chapter 15, the name changer chart 2000. Professor Poopypants spent several minutes jotting down a complex code on the 3 giant billboards. Next, George and Harold, along with nearly 1,000 of their fellow shrunken students, marched to meet the professor from the terrifying clutch of his giant robotic hand. "What is that crazy guy up to?" asked Mr. Crud from his office window. "I'll tell you," shouted Poopypants. "Everybody on the planet must now change the number names into silly names using 3 charts. Anyone who refuses will get shrunk." "How do the charts work?" asked Mr. Crub. "It's easy," said Professor Poopypants. "What's your first name?" "I'm not telling," said Mr. Crub. "What is your first name?" shouted Professor Poopypants. All right, said Mr. Crub. "It's, Benny." All of the children giggled. "So the first letter of your first name is B," said Bippy. "Now look at the first chart and find the letter B." Mr. Crub looked at the chart. "It says B, Lumpy," he whined. "Good," said Professor Poopypants. "Your new first name is Lumpy." All of the children laughed. "Ah, Lumpy Crub," moaned Mr. Crub. "I don't want to be called Lumpy Crub." "You won't," laughed Professor Poopypants, "because you have to change your last name too." Oh, said Mr. Crub. "Your last name is Crub," said the professor, "which starts with a K and ends with a B. Now find the letter K on the second chart and the letter B on the third chart." Mr. Crub looked at the 2 charts. "It says K, Putty, and P, Biscuit." "Wonderful," shouted the professor. "Your new last name is Potty Biscuit." "Oh no," groaned the principal. "My new name is Lumpy Potty Biscuit." The children all with laughter. "Don't laugh too hard, kiddies," said Professor Poopypants. "You'll have to change your names too, or I'll shrunk you again." Well, as you can imagine, nobody wanted to get shrunk twice, so everybody looked at the 3 charts and figured out their new silly names. Stephanie Yardov became Start to Go out of breath. Robbie Stenberg became Loopy Pizza Pants, and poor little Janet Warlock became Poopsie Chucklebutt. "This may be the most horrible moment in all human history," said the local news reporter to her audience. "It seems that everyone on Earth must now change his or her name to avoid getting shrunk. Good luck to you all." This is Jim Double Brains reporting for Eyewitness News. Now back to you, Booger. Chapter 16, Fluffy Cheeseball. This is Fluffy, Tolano's Cheeseball off of Eddie. Fluffy is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Cheeseball is the one on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. "We got to do something," cried Fluffy. said Cheeseball. We're smaller than 2 mice. What could we possibly do? Let's go find our old friend, Captain Underpants. So Fluffy Cheeseball ran over to Barty Biscuit's office and found him cowering under his desk. I can't believe I'm going to do about this, Fluffy. But here goes nothing. Fluffy snapped his fingers. Suddenly, a strange change came over Lumpy Barty Biscuit. His worried frown quickly turned into a heroic smile. He rose from behind his desk and thrust out his chest. And now damn it all, Mr. Barty Biscuits had removed his outer coating and tied a red curtain around his neck. Tra-la-la, Senor, Captain Underpants is here. Go, said Cheeseball, but from now on, you have to call yourself Buttercup Chicken Fanny. The guy in the trouble suit said so. Hey, Captain Underpants, I don't take no orders from anybody, Greg, said Fluffy. Now fly out that window and bring back that big machine thingy with the lumber lamp on top. Yes, sir, said Captain Underpants. Chapter 17, Captain Underpants to the rescue. Captain Underpants flew down to the ground and grabbed the Grocery 4000, but is on his way back up, he's spotted by Professor Poopypants. The evil professor zapped Captain Underpants with a bolt of energy from the Shrinky Pig 2000. Psst. Suddenly, the waistband warrior begins to shrink even smaller than before. He flew back to the tiny school carrying an extremely small Gussie Grow 4000 and he dropped it into the Fluffy's hand. Hey, where's Captain Underpants? Asked Fluffy. I don't know, said Cheeseball. I think he got shrunk so small that we can't see him anymore. Well, said Fluffy, at least we have this little invention thingy. How's that going to help us? Asked Cheeseball. I saw Professor Poopypants use it to make the pencil really big, said Fluffy. It's our only hope of ever getting back to normal size, so I hope it still works, said Cheeseball. Fluffy and Cheeseball dashed the school kitchen and climbed up the ladder on the roof. Maybe if we zap the school with this thing, everybody will grow back to normal size, said Fluffy. Good idea, said Cheeseball. Then we can all run away. Chapter 18, Are You That God? It's us, Fluffy and Cheeseball. Fluffy pointed the Grocery 4000 at the roof of the school and got ready to press the button. But the boys were spotted by Professor Poopypants. Quickly, he turned his mighty robotic hand, and Fluffy and Cheeseball slid off the roof. Downward, they tumbled through the air. Oh no, shouted Cheeseball. We're doomed. Wait a second, cried Fluffy. Do you have a piece of paper on you? Yeah, screamed Cheeseball. Right here in my pocket. But what good is it gonna do us now? Quick, cried Fluffy, folded into a paper airplane. What kind of paper airplane? Asked Cheeseball. Any kind, screamed Fluffy. Just do it now. Quickly, Cheeseball folded the paper into a goofy-looking glider. Oh, Sassy screamed. Great, yelled Fluffy. Now hold it steady. Fluffy pointed the tiny Gussie Grow 4000 at Cheeseball's airplane, and he pressed the button. Suddenly, Cheeseball's airplane grew to an enormous size. Fluffy and Cheeseball flopped down into it, and the paper airplane took off, gliding through the air. Oh man, cried Cheeseball. I can't believe that worked. We're not out of this yet, yelled Fluffy. 19. The Flight of the Goofy Glider. Fluffy Cheeseball had to admit that it was pretty cool flying over to the city streets on the paper airplane. They didn't even seem to mind the fact that they were only about an inch tall each, but you can probably imagine the boys' concern when they started heading straight for our chipper. Oh no, cried Fluffy. We're gonna get we're jibbered to death. Cheeseball couldn't look. He put his hands over his eyes and waited for the inevitable. But suddenly, swoosh! The paper airplane swerved sharply and missed the wood chipper altogether. Hey, cried Fluffy, how did that happen? I don't know, said Cheeseball. I'm not stirring this thing. The boys had barely got their breath when a small dog noticed the airplane and came running after them. Oh no, cried Cheeseball. We're gonna get eaten by a rainer dog. Fluffy covered his eyes this time. But you wouldn't know it. The airplane swerved sharply upward and out of range of the little dog altogether. Are you doing this? asked Cheeseball. No, said Fluffy. It must be the wind. Finally, the paper airplane landed in a wet, sticky pile of hot blacktop. Yuck, said Fluffy. What could be worse than getting stuck in a pile of blacktop? Maybe getting crushed by a big steamroller thingy, said Cheeseball. You sure have an active imagination, said Fluffy. No, I don't, said Cheeseball, as he pointed upward. Look. Oh no, screamed Fluffy. We're gonna get steamroller dangly to death. Just then, the boys were yanked up by the backs of the shirts and carried off through the air to safety. Something's got a hold of us, cried Cheeseball, but I can't see what it is. It must be Captain Underpants, said Fluffy. We just can't see him because he's so small. Hey, said Cheeseball, I'll bet he was steering the airplane on a danger too. Our hero, the boys shouted. Chapter 20. Extra large underpants. Fluffy and Cheeseball landed safely in an abandoned alley. We got to enlarge Captain Underpants so he can fight Professor Poopypants, said Fluffy. The fate of the entire planet is in our hands. But how can we enlarge him if we can't even see him, asked Cheeseball. Good question, said Fluffy. Wait, said Cheeseball. I got an idea. He got out as loud as he could. Captain Underpants, we can't see you, but if you can hear us, fly over and land on my finger. We have a machine that can make you big again. The boys waited for a few seconds. Look, said Fluffy. Look, Fluffy, said Cheeseball. There he is, see? Here's that little tiny speck on my finger. Now just aim the machine at that little speck. But don't zap my finger, okay? Don't worry, said Fluffy. I'm a great shot with this thing. I want to zap you. Whoops. Sorry. The good news is that was that Captain Underpants had grown larger and was now visible. The bad news was, well, let's just say that the cheeseball was going to have an awful hard time picking his nose with his right hand from from now on. Fluffy gave Captain Underpants a few more shots from the Gussie Grove 4000. The waistband warrior grew and grew and grew until he was 10 stories high. Finally, the colossal captain headed toward the preposterous professor. A showdown was about to begin. The little boy friend jumped into the him and to be walking by with his mother again. He looked up and saw a giant man in his underwear getting ready to fight a huge robot in the middle of the city. "Mommy," said the little boy. "What?" asked his mother. Never mind," said the boy. Chapter 21, the incredibly graphic violence chapter in Flip-Barama. Warning, the following chapter contains scenes that are so intense and horrific they may not be suitable for viewing by people who can't take a joke. If you are easily offended, or if you intend to blame of all society's evils on TV shows and cartoon characters, please run to your nearest supermarket and get a life. They are located in the carry-all section next to the clothes. Good luck. Introducing Flip-Barama, bulky brand. It was hard works. Throughout the history of great art, there have been many times when artists have to find their own unique styles, creating what is known as a moment. For example, there was a Resistance moment, the Impressionist moment, and even the pop art moment. Today, many art scholars agree that the early 21st century made it go down in history as the Flip-Barama moment. Let's enjoy this great art form and marvel at its emerging cultural significance, shall we? Step 1. Place your left hand inside the dotted lines marked left hand here on the back of a flat. Step 2. Grasp the right hand page with your right thumb and index finger inside the dotted lines marked right thumb here. Step 3. Now quickly flip the right hand page back and forth until the picture appears to be animated. For extra fun, try adding your own sound effects. Flip-Barama 1, pages 121 and 123. Remember, flip only page 121. While you are flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 121 and the one on page 123. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. Professor Poopypants packed a powerful punch. Flip-Barama 2, pages 125 and 127. Remember, flip only to page 125. While you are flipping, be sure you can see the picture on the right on page 125 and the one on the page 127. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. But the head button here halted the horror. Flip-Barama 3, pages 129 and 131. Remember, flip only page 129. While you are flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 129 and the one on page 131. If you flip it quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. The brief word bandit battle, the bionic behemoth. Flip-O-Rama 4, pages 133 and 135. Remember, flip only page 133. While you are flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 133 and the one on page 135. If you flip it quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. The Waistband Warrior won the war. Chapter 22, the 22nd chapter. Professor Poopypants had been defeated, and everybody in the school cheered wildly. They were still small, but at least they got their old names back. I'm sure I don't have a silly name anymore, said Miss Ripple. Me too, said Mr. Acton. Alright, cried George. Let's all give Captain Underpants a big hand. Yay! Was not amused. Whoops, said George. Sorry. That's okay, said Harold. Just give me that invention thing so I can zap us back to normal. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. Harold the Gussie Grove 1000 in his giant hand and zapped George and himself, that is, every part of himself except for his giant hand. Suddenly, George and Harold were back to their normal sizes again. Boys, said George, we sure have tested the limits of science today. Yep, said Harold, and the limits of our readers' willing suspension of disbelief. Yeah, said George, that too. George and Harold picked up their tiny school and carried it back to where it belonged. George got ready to zap the school with the Gussie Grove 1000, while Harold prepared to zap again the Underpants with the Shrinky Big 2000. I sure hope this works, said George. Me too, said Harold. Chapter 23, to make a long story short, it did. Chapter 24, the chapter before the last chapter. George kept the Underpants over to the bushes behind the school and ordered him to dress back up like Mr. Crump. Let's go, Bob, said George. We haven't got all day. And Harold had some fun with the gun hose, and no time at all, Mr. Crump was back to his old nasty self again. Soon the cops showed up to arrest Professor Poopypants. There's one thing I don't understand, said George to the professor. Wouldn't it have been smarter to change your own name instead of forcing the rest of the world to change theirs? Gosh, said Professor Poopypants, I never thought of that. A few weeks later, George and Harold received a letter from the Bycross State Penitentiary. Bycross State Pen. Dear George and Harold, sorry about trying to overthrow the world and everything. I decided to take take your advice and change my name so that people won't laugh at me anymore. For now on, I'll be going by my grandfather's name on my mother's side. It's such a relief knowing that nobody will ever make fun of my name again. Signed, Tippy Tinkle Trousers. Chapter 25, the chapter after the chapter before the last chapter. You know, said George, I really learned something today. One said, asked Harold. I learned that it's not nice to make fun of people, said George. Wow, said Harold. I think this is the first time one of our stories ever had a moral. Probably the last time too, said George. Let's hope so, said Harold. George and Harold had forgotten all about the other moral that he had learned along the way, which was, don't ever, ever, ever hypnotize your principal, because if you do, your life can go from bad to worse. Snap, snap, and the snap of a finger. Oh no, screamed Harold. Here we go again, screamed George. Tra-la-la. Fun facts. Fun fact 1. This book began as a title. They had thought of it one day while he was sitting in the movie theater waiting for the previews to start. The title itself was really funny, but Dave knew he didn't want to write a story about a guy with poop in his pants. Believe it or not, even Dave has his limits. Dave wondered, what if he had a silly name? What if he was a really smart guy who was just cursed with a funny name? I began to think of Albert Einstein, who was a true genius, but what if his name had been Stinky Chunks? But anybody had taken him seriously. Dave wanted the rest of the story to find out. Fun fact number 2. Although Professor Poopypants' name makes everyone laugh, Dave didn't want his book to promote name calling. Growing up, Dave was teased because of his last name. Kids called him Dave Pinky and Dave Because and even Dave Pukey, all because of the last name he was born with. But what if you could take anybody's given name, regardless of it was funny or not, and insert it into a equation that will make everybody's name equally ridiculous? That's how the name Changer John 2000 came to be. Now I can't name Larry Drake, probably no longer be able to make fun of a kid named Johnny Butts, because Broken Bubble Tush is just as silly a name as Bubsy Tolafini. Fun fact number 3. One of Dave's picture book characters makes a guest appearance in this book. Can you spot him? And his last name is Myers. Fun fact number 4. Professor Poopypants has closely modeled on Albert Einstein, who was the inspiration for this character. The real Einstein was much taller though, 5 feet and 9 inches. Fun fact number 5. In the original edition of this book, the logo for Parker State Penitentiary and the letter on page 145 the rumor that Dave Pilgrim doesn't know how to spell penitentiary. Professor Poopypants' name change on chart 2000. No one laughs at Professor Poopypants and gets away with it. Find out what your new name is with my nasty name change or chart 2000 to a face the wrath of the Shrinky Pig 2000. First chart. Use the letter of your first name to determine your new first name. A. Stinky, B. Lumpy, C. Buttercup, D. Digit, E. Crusty, F. Greasy, G. Fluffy, H. Cheeseball, I. Chim Chim, G. Poopsie, K. Conky, L. Booger, M. Pinky, N. Zippy, O. Goober, B. Doofus, Q. Slimy, R. Loopy, S. Snotty, T. Falafel, U. Dorky, V. Squizzit, W. Upper, X. Zipper, Y. Dinky, C. Say. 1. Second chart. 2. Second chart. Use the letter of your last name to determine the first half of your new last name. A. Diaper, B. Toilet, C. Giggle, D. Bubble, E. Goodle, F. Barf, G. Lizard, F. H. Waffle, I. Goody, G. Monkey, K. Bonnie, L. Liver, M. Banana, N. Rhino, O. Burger, B. Hamster, Q. Toad, R. Gizzard, S. Pizza, T. Gerbil, U. Chicken, V. Pickle, W. Choco, X. Tofu, Y. Gorilla, C. Stinker. 3. Third chart. Use the letter of your last name to determine the second half of your new last name. A. Head, B. Mouth, C. Face, D. Nose, E. Tush, F. Breath, G. Pants, H. Shorts, I. Lips, J. Hunger, K. Butt, L. Brain, M. Tushy, N. Chucks, O. Honey, P. Biscuits, Q. Toes, R. Buns, C. Fanny, D. Sniffer, U. Sprinkles, V. Kisser, W. Squirt, X. Humperdinck, Y. Brains, C. Juice. Coming next from George and Harold, the graphic novel that started it all. While we're in kindergarten, we made up our first He'll Ever Dog Me and Me Too. Next year, Dog Man will star in his first full-length graphic novel. So rag your tails and howl at the moon. The Adventures of Dog Man is coming soon. Get ready for action, suspense, romance, sniff, and laughs. Laugh your tails off. Read it to your dog, and then fetch your copy soon. 2016 is the year of the Dog Man. The Adventures of Dog Man, the world's greatest cop. About the author, when Dave Perilous was a kid, his teachers thought he was disruptive, behaviorally challenged, and in serious need of a major attitude adjustment. When Dave was writing sentences in the detention room. He could usually be found sitting at his private desk out in the hallway. There he spent his time writing and drawing his own original comic books about a superhero named Captain Underpants. George Neald, a Minneapolis mad scientist in full color. George and Neald are fourth grade buddies who love practical jokes, and the latest prank drives their science teacher over the edge. Their clueless principal, Mr. Crump, Gregory Har's replacement, Professor Poopypants, of course. George and Neald can't resist making fun of the professor's silly name. But then the professor really hates by forcing everyone in town to change their own names to be equally silly, with colossal consequences. Featuring Flipperama, the world-famous cheesy animation technique that lets you animate the action. Bonus, fun facts, and silly stuff inside. The critics are crazy about Underpants, over 7 million books in print. Berkeley's shop where humor shines is as much fun for parents as their young readers. Parents' Choice Foundation, so appealing that youngsters won't notice that the vocabulary is touching. The end.